What's up, what's up, what's up? Dagic back here talking about Pauper EDH, Rocco Seeker Scrounger. We're going to take a deeper dive into the actual combo in this video. The first one was more of an overview of the entire deck. This is going to focus almost exclusively on the combo pieces, how the combo works, why the combo works, what's so good about it, what's bad about it. We're going to avoid a lot of the bad stuff. We don't want to talk about the bad stuff. We'll talk about the fun stuff. Alright, so let's dive in. Right, as discussed previously, the combo is Seeker of Skybreak and Hanger Scrounger. Seeker of Skybreak is a 2/1 elf, 1 and a green mana, tap, untap target creature. The notable thing about this card is that it can target itself. Recently, Wizards has printed similar cards, but they almost always say other permanent, or Clever Conjurer is worded super weirdly. That says card not named Clever Conjurer. It's odd that they formatted it that way. But anyway, Seeker Scrounger is not unique. There's a 5-drop blue card, Tidewater Minion, I think, that does the same thing. There's a Fedo Alchemist. That is a 2-drop blue, but it's an uncommon, so it's not super relevant here. But it's not regularly seen. It's not like there's a bunch of cards that do this that we can swap in and out for Seeker Skybreak. And the card that unlocked the combo is Hanger Scrounger, 2 in a red, 2/1 as well. It's a dwarf pilot with backup 1. Whenever this creature becomes tapped, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Right, so if you back up Seeker of Skybreak, you can tap it, targeting itself to untap it, and each time you will rummage your library of 1 card. Discard, draw, discard, draw, discard, draw, over and over and over again. Right, so that's the whole combo. Right, the upsides here is that it's 2 cards, and we say 2 cards loosely because actually winning the game requires a very significant amount of deck considerations. Most of the deck is built to facilitate this combo, but ultimately you only need 2 cards to get it online, and once you get it online, you win the game. So it's a 2-card plus combo. I'm not sure the best way to describe it. No matter which way to describe it, somebody always chimes in and it's like, well, it's like a 14-card combo. I'm like, okay, yeah, but like 12 of the cards just have to exist in your starting library, right? It's like saying that, like, you know, you count the basic lands as part of your combo. So it's only 5 mana, and it only has 2 pips. So 1 red, 1 green, and 3 colorless. That's pretty good for Pauper. I mean, 2 cards by itself is pretty good for Pauper. I mean, you can't really get it. There's no 1-card combos in Pauper. So 2 cards is about as good as it can get. And at 5 mana, that's significantly cheaper than most as well. One downside is it requires haste. Seeker Skybreak has to be able to tap. So usually this means like protecting it for a turn, or, you know, the deck has a couple of... There are ways to give it haste. I know you build the deck however you want, but there are ways to give it haste, obviously. So you could go that way and add a card to the combo, or you can just hope. The hope method works too. Seeker Skybreak is pretty unassuming on its own, so the hope method has a tendency to work. Plus, like, when you look at it, it doesn't look like it ends the game, especially in Pauper EDH. Like, you'd assume in Commander proper, right, that if you can draw your whole deck, you'll win the game, but not necessarily in Pauper. All the cards are commons. There's not a lot of repeatable effects like that. You know, you don't have the Eldrazi to keep shuffling through your library, so it's not a given that you'll win the game until you see it. And then the last bonus I'd like to note here is that it doesn't require a specific commander. There's a lot of great combos in Pauper EDH, especially on the competitive side of things, that revolve around like Dargo, which is uncommon, so has to be your commander, or like Gretchen, Titchwillow, the activated ability. Like, the commander is part of the combo, so you have to have a green-blue commander that has some sort of activated ability like that. This combo can go in any red-green deck. I chose Rocco because Rocco can search up both halves. And searching for a creature outright like Rocco does is not something that you can really do in Pauper EDH. But there's other options. You could play any red-green commander. You could build like an aggro deck and just accidentally find the combo and win. I wouldn't do that, but you could. because you know it takes a ton of cards. Like the deck is full of ramp, rituals, combo cards, protection spells, combo pieces. So it's not like you can just pop it in. It doesn't take like 4 slots, and you just like, oh, also I'm gonna run this combo. No, it's not that easy, but it's possible to build a lot of different red, green plus commanders with this combo in mind. I know there are some people out there playing a 5 color version, right, of the combo. You get the Tidewater minion, you get the transmute effects from blue and black, you get counter spells, you get the blue card draw, all good stuff. Um, this deck is a little more akin to a Goblin Charbelcher or a Dredge, as opposed to that one that's more like a well-rounded, solid deck, right? Trying to play a good game of Magic. This one is trying to not play a good game of Magic. This one is trying to play a silly game of Magic where you win out of nowhere on turn 4. Or possibly turn 2, as you can see down there at the bottom. We'll go over the turn 2 win in a different video, but it is possible. And it only takes 6. Well, it takes these 2 cards in your hand, 2 basic lands, and then a Lotus Petal or a Simian Spirit Guide, and a Tinderwall or a Rite of Flame. I think, yeah. And you can play or you can play like more rituals, and then this can also be redundant for that last slot. Anyway, so you can win on turn 2, which is kind of nuts, but yeah. So next up, we're going to check into the concepts, the ideas behind the combo, what you have to keep in mind when you're comboing off, because it's not. When you do it a few times, it becomes pretty easy to understand, but right off the jump, it's a little bit. It can be a little confusing, right? So we'll look at the concepts, right? Hand size is key. You have to keep your hand size up, and it's not easy to do. Okay, so keep that in mind, because secondarily, mana availability is key. You gotta cast at some point. You need 4 mana to cast Fuming Effigy, right? And you need to get to like 2 mana to cast the Burning Tree Emissary. Even though it's free, you still have to get up to 2 mana. All your rituals are -1 card. All your shuffle effects are -1 card. So you can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna combo off now. If you only have 3 cards in hand, you're gonna need to refill in some capacity, because your Lotus Petal, Felden's Cane is going to be -2. Now you're down to 1 card, and you have no mana, right? There's no, you can't get 4 mana and cast Fuming Effigy with 1 card. You can think of it as search your library for cards equal to hand size, to sort of model the combo line. That's if you have 3 cards in hand, and you need exactly 3 cards or less than 3 cards, then you can look at it this way. If you need 4 cards and you kind of need them to show up in a certain order, you can't really look at it this way, because if the order's backwards, you have to discard 1 and come up with a new plan. But at a very basic level, you can say, okay, I'm comboing off, I have 3 cards in hand, I need to get a Lotus Petal, a Whiteout, and a Felden's Cane. And you can basically just go grab them, like when you're goldfishing. You can just go get them. You don't have to flip through the deck, because it works like that. If your line requires cards to be in the graveyard, then you must reserve 1 slot in hand as random card. So this came up in a previous build of the deck, because I used Tethma's High Priest as the combo line, which, to note, is 1 mana cheaper actually than the Fuming Effigy line. It takes more cards, but it's 1 mana cheaper. So there's an upside there. There's a give and take. I don't know which one's better or worse. The Tethma's line is nice because you can assemble it outside of Seeker Scrounger. Goblin Matron, flicker effects, right? You can put it together without having to get the engine, the main combo online. So you can like accidentally win that way. It gives you like your main plan has a backup plan built in. It's nice. It's not bad, and it's 1 mana cheaper. But it takes 5, 6, 7 cards as opposed to 2. So 5 slots is also pretty good. Anyway, that line required like Maul War Marshal to be in the graveyard. So if I'm looking at my hand, if I have 3 cards and I'm like, okay, I need Crown of Flames, Recommission, and Also, I need these cards to be in the yard. Like, that third card has to be a random card. I can't be like, I need Lotus Petal, Tethmos, Crown of Flames, and my whole library to be in the graveyard, because I'll have to discard one of these 3 cards that I need to have to mill the rest of my library. Or I have to get up to a 4th card, which we're talking about the minimalist method here, because you'll probably end up with more than 3 cards. But as a proof of concept, we want to look at the worst case scenario. So you have to reserve one of those cards as random card if you need to mill the rest of your library, or if you need cards to be in the graveyard. There's only 2 shuffle effects available to us. Felden's Cane costs 1, and Campfire costs 3. So the first time through, you don't want to roll over a Felden's Cane because you have Campfire. You're like, oh, I don't need this Felden's Cane. You really, really, really want to hold on to Felden's Cane because it costs 1. And if you do roll over it, then instead of getting to 1 mana, now you have to get to 3 plus whatever else you got going on. So Campfire is for the second run. Felden's Cane is usually for the first run. I mean, it's unavoidable sometimes, but that's the idea. And lastly, I know I mentioned it, you only have to get to 4 mana, right? When I'm goldfishing, you get up to 25 mana and 14 cards in hand, just because it's kind of fun. Right, to just keep doing it, but you only have to get to 4. You have to find Fuming Effigy, get to 4 mana, and then find Shenanigans. That's it. You don't have to, like, put too much effort into it. You don't need 40 cards in hand, right? Like, if there's not a lot of times they're gonna, like, let you start comboing off, even though that might be the right way to play against this deck if it got good, is to, like, let me combo off and try and interact when my library is empty. But you only have to get to 4 mana. You only have to resolve Fuming Effigy. Now you might want to get to 5 or 6 mana and hold on to like a Pyroblast, but you only have to get to 4, which is not hard. Metamorphosis, your Hanger Scrounger, you got 4 mana. So now we're going to look at the actual cards, and we're going to talk about them specifically. We're going to fly through them because we touched on most of them already, right? We're just going to look at them in order, talk about them, you know, as a sort of a ranking. This is a ranking, right? What we're going to look at next. So we've assembled the combo. This is what you're looking for to keep in your hand. This is the heuristic that you use when you don't know how to play the deck, when you're working on it. Once you kind of understand the lines, you can do whatever you want, but this is sort of the base level heuristic, right? So you need mana. The first key idea is that you have to have mana. Right, you need to find either the Lotus Petal, the Spirit Guide, or a Forest, because, right, we're still talking about the minimalist line, right? You just spent 8 mana for your Rocco to get Hanger Scrounger. You don't have any more mana, right? So you need to find a Lotus Petal, a Spirit Guide, or maybe you have a land drop. So it's Forest or Mountain, whatever would be your 1 mana that you need to sort of kickstart. It's like the primer, right? You need the primer. You can't roll over Lotus Petal and Spirit Guide and all of your lands and then combo off because you have no mana. It just doesn't work. Second up, as we touched on, is the Felden's Cane and the Campfire. You got to keep one of them. You have to, right? You can't roll over both. You could, and then you could hope to generate enough mana to like reclaim one of them. Like, it's not you're not dead in the water if you roll over both of them. It just gets harder, and it's not important to this particular video, right? So Felden's Cane or Campfire is like generally the second slot. So it's a mana piece, shuffle piece, right? And now, if we still have cards available in hand, we need to get more, right? You want like 5, 6, 7 cards. It's like a real nice spot where you can keep a ritual, a protection spell, your Felden's Cane, your Lotus Petal, and you can find like a multicolored card or it's just something nice, right? So that next up, we're looking for the Eidolons. They're cool because you can roll over. You want to roll over. You want to discard them. You want to put them in the yard. Okay. Similarly, white out. We want to discard. Once we hit white out, we sacrifice our snow lands, and now our card problems are pretty much solved. But you gotta be worried about white out being like the last card in your deck. You can't rely on it. That's why we have this backup Eidolon plan. Because if whiteout is too low in our deck, then we've probably had to roll over a bunch of key cards. With the Eidolons, next up, you're looking for probably just one of these. You don't need to find all 3 of them. when you're goldfishing, it's fun to like play all of them, right? Because they're each one's like draw 3. Manamorphosis draw 4, right? And your hand side just keeps growing and growing and growing. But you really only need to find one with a couple of Eidolons. So like a Wild Cantor is like a 0 mana draw 2 if you found 2 Eidolons. And even if it's 1 Eidolon, right? It's still a 0 mana draw. You know, it's a 0 mana filter. You know, puts a creature out there. It's not a terrible play, but it's, you know, it's pretty pointless at that point. But if you found 2 Eidolons, then, you know, Wild Cantor, Burning Tree Emissary are 0 mana, draw 2 cards. And 3 cards is best, but 0 mana, draw 2, draw 3. You'd need to hit one of those just to solve your problems. And then the rituals, again, you only really need maybe 2 or 3 of these. Sometimes you have to use them to get things going. So Infernal Plunge is probably the best one in a vacuum, right? You have a lot of sacrificable creatures. The only one you really can't sack is Seeker of Skybreak. Battle Hymn is like the big boost. That's the big one. That really solves the problems. And Metamorphosis is like, you know, it helps that Fuming Effigy is a creature because Metamorphosis can solve that problem directly, right? So they're all pretty good. Rite of Flame is more of like a Kickstarter, you know, that gets you up to Burning Tree Emissary or Manamorphose mana, right? Tinderwall does the same thing. It gets you to a place where you can actually start generating cards. But you only need, you can roll over Battle Hymn, you can roll over Metamorphosis, you can roll over Tinderwall. You want to have one of these, right? You can't roll over, you probably can't roll over all 5, okay? That's the point. And there's extras because there's a lot of times where you want to cast them throughout the game as well. And finally is the final combo. Fuming Effigy is at 3 in red, 4/3 spirit. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, Fuming Effigy deals 1 damage to each opponent. Right, so you cast it. You get up to 4 mana, 5, 6 mana, you cast Fuming Effigy, right? And Shenanigans is a sorcery, 1 red, destroy target artifact with dredge 1. So you discard the Shenanigans and then draw it to the other half of the Rummage ability, and you replace that draw with a dredge. So you mill a card, return Shenanigans back, trigger Fuming Effigy, deal 1 damage to everybody. It ends up being deal 1 damage for each card left in your library. So like, you know, if you assemble it on the second pass through, right, I usually wait till I draw the Campfire to like start Shenanigansing. Right, so then I do that library damage, and then I can Campfire and do my whole library again, just in case something goes wrong. But on the third pass, if like you haven't found the Shenanigans, you got to be worried about the size of your library, right? You could end up in a place where you fizzle in that world, but that's more about planning, right? So one thing you want to keep in mind, there's a lot of little things you got to keep in mind. Like I said in the first video, Rocco will trigger your Eidolons. It's the little things. Rocco brings back the Eidolons from your graveyard. It's a multicolor spell. Shenanigans. You want to keep Shenanigans around your hand. So if you're about to Felden's Cane and Shenanigans is in your graveyard, on your last draw, you want to dredge Shenanigans back to your hand. It doesn't matter what that card is. It's probably useless anyways. Unless you know that it's something good, you want to dredge Shenanigans back to your hand because you want Shenanigans in and around your hand. You want to know where that card is, right? So instead of just Felden's Caning willy-nilly and finding Shenanigans later, dredge the last card, put Shenanigans back in your hand so you know where it is, and hold on to Fuming Effigies for as long as possible too, right? Because it's the same in reverse. If you're on your third pass and Fuming Effigy is the last card in your deck, you're gonna fizzle, right? So I realize you can't always hold on to Fuming Effigy, especially on the first pass, but on the second pass you want to do everything you can to keep Fuming Effigy in your hand, or to keep a reclaim, so that when you get down to the bottom of your deck and now you finally have enough mana and enough cards in hand, you can reclaim Fuming Effigy, draw it, then shuffle with Campfire. And that's it. That's the heuristic. That's what you want to do. You want to keep your Lotus Petal, you keep your Felden's Cane, and then you look for white out, you look for Eidolons, you draw cards, you cast rituals, you look for Effigy, you look for Shenanigans, and wait till you have 4 mana. It only takes 25 cards, but it's still a 2 mana combo. Don't forget that. This is a 2 mana combo. Okay? If you want to check out the deck, I wrote out most of this information in the primer on the Moxfield list. You can use the QR code or the link right there. We'll put it in the video description. Next up, we're probably going to talk about the development process. Put out a development video tomorrow, like what cards we're looking at changing. I think I'm not sold yet on Basking Root Wall necessarily, or Cat Tarantula, or Tumbleweeds. Some of the white cards I could see cutting, like shoot, I can't remember what they're called right now, but like Blacksmith Skill, like it's too much protection to the point where your hand ends up being just protection spells, and you're just like playing Drawco and doing nothing. So I'm trying to figure out what to do with those spots. I also don't think I need 31 lands. So I got about 7 slots, I think. 7-ish slots to work with. And I'm thinking I want to add, some 3, 4, 5 drop creatures, some bodies that can do stuff, some silver bullets. But we'll discuss that in the next video. So thanks for watching. Leave a comment. Thank you. Peace out. I don't know what to do with myself. I think too much, I smoke too much, I drink too much, I